Only 16% of projects succeed by achieving full features within the time and cost constraints. Half of all software projects fail due to poor requirements engineering. The cause of these failures can be linked to incomplete or changing requirements and poor user involvement. With such low success rates of projects, there is a need to elicit better requirements from stakeholders in order to get a fuller picture of the product. One way of increasing stakeholder involvement is through the gamification of requirements engineering activities. Gamification helps motivate users to participate in requirements engineering activities through the use of various gaming elements so that the user gains a sense of achievement through participation. Hi, I'm Ronnie Rogan, and today I will be talking to you about the gamification of requirements engineering. First, I will cover the background of gamification as well as common gaming elements. Next, I will cover several frameworks and platforms that use gamification, including how they help with requirements engineering process, as well as their contributions to furthering the research of gamification. Finally, I will cover the problems with the gamified requirements engineering and how to improve its application in the field. Starting off, I have a brief background explaining gamification and gaming elements. So gamification was first coined in 2008. It's still a new area of study, and its concepts have been applied to other business-related areas, but its application in software development is still in its infancy stages. Several frameworks have been proposed as a way of standardizing gamified systems development. As gamification in the requirements engineering field gains more popularity, there needs to be a unified methodology and vocabulary for the development of these systems. Many different gaming elements are used across different gamification frameworks, though they tend to use similar features as those features are commonly understood by users. Gamification is defined as the use of gaming elements in a non-gaming context. A game refers to a set of evaluable actions taken by a player where the player's performance is a measurable characteristics. Games follow a set of given rules that can be organized into tasks that require user effort in order to achieve a specific goal. Certain rewards can be given to incentivize tasks. For example, points can be given after completing a particular task that can be used to unlock content or level up. Scoring can be done either individually or by team, which can then be displayed on leaderboards. Actions that can gain points would be those that are useful activities such as making posts, having others interact with their posts, or rating and commenting on others' posts. Many frameworks use Bartle's player types, which are based off of personality types. They are the achiever, explorer, socializer, and killer. Achievers are characterized by wanting to achieve in-game goals. Explorers want to explore their virtual world. Socializers want to interact with other players, and killers want to impose on other players. Both achievers and explorer players want to interact with the world, while killers and socializers would rather interact with other players. On the other hand, killers and achievers would rather act, while socializers and explorers would rather interact. Most people have one dominant type, namely socializer, but they will display the tendencies of other types as well. In order to have gamified requirements engineering, it's necessary to create frameworks that outline how software requirements engineering gamification should work and provide platforms for the users to interact with each other on. Through several stages of the requirements engineering process, you can gamify several of these stages. This paper is focused primarily on the elicitation stage and the frameworks and platforms that involve that. First up is AGON, which is an acceptance requirements framework developed for the purpose of supporting the development of gamified systems. The purpose of AGON is to characterize the user as well as the acceptance subject and to help select a gamified solution based off of that information. Within the AGON framework, there are two goal models as well as a bridging middle layer. The acceptance model is at the acceptance layer and uses psychological factors that positively contribute to the acceptance of a system. Then the gamification model is at the gamification layer and uses gamified concepts to maximize the social software usage. Between these two layers is the tactical model, which relates the acceptance criteria to the gamified concepts. When using AGON, a requirements analyst selects characteristics from the user context model that represents the intended audience qualities. Next, AGON chooses the psychological factors based off of those characteristics, and then they're refined by the tactical model to finally select the best suited gamified solution. So AGON provides a generic framework for gamified design with the goal of exploring the user's characteristics that affect gamification. The creators of AGON hope to extend the framework by branching out to other approaches, such as its application with serious games or using tangible incentives. Then there's the motivational antecedent framework, or MAF for short. It's a framework that is based off of organizational science and game theory rather than originating from a computer science perspective. In the theory behind MAF, humans are motivated by a variety of reasons, some of them that are intrinsic, while others can be promoted through the use of incentives. MAF pulls its incentives from a mechanism design perspective, which is a field in game theory that states that individuals act according to their own interests first and need incentive to act in alignment with social interests. MAF's primary concern is the analysis of the player, including the motivation and performance of that player. The framework defines 4 variables that affect the performance: the goal of the activity, the task to achieve that goal, the social context of the game, and the type of good being produced. The goal itself has 3 main elements, the communication level about the goal, the participation level of the player, and the clarity level of the goal. The tasks elements are the variety, specificity, identification, and skill set required for that task. The social context refers to whether there is a social hierarchy or not, and the type of good produced can either be public or private. MAF is a conceptual framework, but it can be integrated with other gamified frameworks like AGON to produce a solution for gamified requirements engineering. In the proposed integrated framework, the first step would be to design a common context model. The context model would map the user context model from AGON into the variables used by MAF. Next, psychological and gamified best strategies would be outlined. After that, the context-dependent rules and their applications would be translated into a common language. The use of this framework would be to have a generic framework to create gamified solutions based off of the specific user and subject of the system to be created. The gamification focused on application lifecycle management, also known as GOAL framework, aims to support the integration of gamification into software engineering through a generic framework, much like MAF and AGON. GOAL has 3 main elements: an ontology for knowledge sharing, a methodology to guide gamification of software lifecycles, and a generic software gamification architecture. GOAL methodology is split into 6 steps. In the first step, the objective of the gamification is identified. This involves identifying the current as well as target scenarios. Next, the stakeholders are analyzed on potential players. Player demographics are identified in this step. GOAL also uses the Bartle player types of Achiever, Explorer, Socializer, and Killer to categorize its players. After that, scope is determined and a feasibility study is done. Following that, the game is designed, meaning the game concepts, mechanics, and rules are decided on. The platform is then developed, and finally, the platform is maintained, managed, and monitored. So GOAL is meant to give a methodological and technological support to the gamification of software engineering by providing a complete solution. The creator of GOAL hopes to extend this framework by using all phases of software lifecycle, not just the requirements analysis portion, as well as other operational areas. Gruso is a gamified social media platform with the purpose of aiding in the requirements engineering process. Gruso was originally developed to help identify stakeholders and have them elicit and prioritize requirements. This platform has two main engines that control the requirements engineering features and the gamification of the system. The requirements engineering, or RE engine, has two main components, the requirements features and the identification features. The first part of the RE engine, the requirements features, supports elicitation and prioritization activities such as making posts and rating others' posts. The second part of the RE engine, which is the identification features, have the goal of identifying more stakeholders. So this includes things like sharing features in order to find more potential stakeholders. The gamified engine is the second engine within the platform. This controls the gamified elements of Gruso. The gamified engine is then further split up into two rule sets, the points and reward systems. The points system earns points through activities that help in the requirements engineering process, which means it connects the requirements features from the RE engine into a measurable quantity. The second rule set, the reward system, connects these in-game points to rewards, such as leveling up to gain more access to features. So the requirements elicitation process in the Gruso platform is done through creating and rating posts. First, a user creates a post that contains a wish for the system being analyzed, as well as a benefit that that wish will provide. Then they must select the label that that wish falls under. Other users can then comment to include additional benefits to the wish, as well as rate the relevance of that wish and whether or not the label fits it. Through this process, new requirements can be found, as well as prioritization of that requirement among stakeholders. In a case study done on the Gruso platform using the Smart Workout motivation system, analysis was done on the motivation and involvement of stakeholders. One of the most important key findings of the study was that the stakeholder participation was above average, with roughly a fourth of site visitors registering to use the Gruso system, compared to the estimated 10% of active users in online communities. The motivation of the user to participate was measured by when the user achieved certain levels, thereby unlocking more features, compared to the frequency of the use of that feature on the platform on that day. It was found that when users unlocked features such as the ability to rate labels on posts, the number of times that activity was used on the platform increased, suggesting a correlation between the user unlocking more features than choosing to use those features. After the study was done, participants were asked about whether rewards were motivating or not, which resulted in finding the most effective rewards earned being points and gaining levels. However, most users found rewards motivating with different intensities, often having different users view each reward on both extremes of motivating versus not motivating. So in short, it was concluded that the use of the gamified platform helped motivate users to participate. However, the perception of the rewards for participating, while generally motivating, differed greatly by user. In an experiment performed on Gruso, the algorithm for controlling specific game elements were changed in order to examine how it affected stakeholder participation. The determination of points earned for activities and the qualification for leveling up were split into fast progress for the control group and mastering challenges for the test group. This means that for the point system, the test group must rate all posts in order to gain their points for the day, while the control group gained points proportional to the number of posts that they rated. The leveling qualifications for the test group also rapidly got harder per level until the midpoint then decreased in difficulty, while the control group had a linear increase in difficulty. On average, users in the test group were more involved in the platform, having an average of 21.33 ratings per user compared to the 11.09 ratings of the control group over the period of the experiment. The average ratings of the posts created by the users in the test group were also higher rated than those of the control group. In the post-experiment survey, both groups found the Geruso platform similar levels of fun and interesting. While the test group had to perform more activities in order to achieve higher levels, they did not perceive the platform in a different light than users in the control group. Geruso provides a great example platform for gamified requirements engineering. The platform provides features that appeal to all 4 of the Bartle player types, meaning that a wide variety of users would find these gamified features motivating. Furthermore, experiments were done on the platform to prove the increased involvement of stakeholders, increased participation, as well as the effectiveness of various game elements on the motivation of these stakeholders. Although gamification is shown to improve stakeholder involvement, there can be some disadvantages to the application of gamification in requirements engineering. The equality of the requirements intentions of the user, as well as outside concerns such as the newness of the field, may call into question the validity of the requirements being elicited through these gamified platforms. One serious flaw is the lack of stakeholder knowledge. When tasked with creating a post that describes a wish for the system being analyzed, users may create unfeasible, trivial, or otherwise ambiguous requirements. Furthermore, many stakeholders lack the vocabulary to fully articulate the requirements or communicate with other stakeholders who have a more knowledge of technical language. There also is a problem with eliciting requirements from minority stakeholders, as their demographics may be underrepresented in its user base, thereby having their needs overlooked. In some of the experiments done on the Geruso platform, they had very small focused study groups that were mainly men and mainly white men at that. So there may be some minorities that were not represented in these studies. So it's important to include them in future focus groups. The use of gaming elements may also promote users to act in malicious or disinterested ways. When the user is focused on simply gaining more points, they may have reduced honesty in order to more quickly rate other users' posts or manipulate others into rating their posts positively in turn. Opinions of the user may become more polarized as a result of them being focused on ratings, defaulting to completely agreeing or disagreeing with other users. Lastly, the use of gamified requirements engineering is still a relatively new field, and new studies and experiments are still being done on gamification. As stated by Gartner, roughly 80% of gamified applications are said to fail due to poor design. This is because most research into gamified applications are still in their preliminary stages, with many papers lacking methodological support. Further studies are needed to determine which game mechanics are the most useful, rather than just selecting the most common ones like points and badges. Some steps can be taken in order to improve the use of gamification in requirements engineering. In order to determine the best game mechanics, experiments should be done analyzing each game element separately. This is often overlooked in research papers, which uses multiple gaming elements in conjunction with each other. Although a study was done using the Geruso platform to show the effects of points and levels on the participation of users, it only surveys 2 game elements, and both in conjunction with each other at that. There still remains many game elements to be analyzed, and it is necessary to conduct these experiments separately, as each game element may influence each other. Oftentimes, experiments are done on small focus groups. However, it's necessary to branch out to more demographics. Culture, age, and gender may change how a user interacts with a gamified system. So it's necessary to have as many demographics as possible test game platforms to ensure the ease of usability, effectiveness of incentives, and enjoyability. One issue of the requirements elicitation process is finding obscure requirements, which often originate from the stakeholders who are underrepresented. Expanding the user base of these gamified systems will prevent overlooking these hard-to-reach stakeholder groups. Furthermore, research and development needs to be done in conjunction with psychology experts. Software developments will software developers will not have the knowledge necessary to implement psychological concepts into a gamified system and will require these experts to collaborate with in order to improve the psychological aspects of a gamified system. More research can be done into understanding the motivation of users as well as the effects of games on the actions of these users. Finally, although several frameworks and platforms have been proposed, many are still in their initial stages, so there is no standardized framework for gamified requirements engineering. As the field progresses, more standardized frameworks will come into use, which will provide developers with a greater understanding of what techniques and game elements work best for requirements elicitation. So in conclusion, requirements engineering often has the issue of getting stakeholders motivated to participate in the elicitation stage, something that the gamification of requirements engineering hopes to solve. Agon, MAP, and Goal provide frameworks to create gamified systems, which can be used in the requirements engineering process, while Guruso is a platform created for the use of eliciting and prioritizing requirements. With the use of these tools, gamified requirements engineering has been shown to increase stakeholder participation in practice. However, gamified requirements engineering is still in its infancy stages and requires more research in order to create a more standardized field. While it's not standard practice now to have gamified requirements engineering, we may see an increase of its use in the near future. Thank you. These are my references. Thank you for listening.